up, all eyes will be on Tyrese Haliburton's ailing right calf tonight as they get set to play an elimination game and try and keep their championship hopes alive at home. Yesterday, Haliburton talking about how smart he needs to be handling this injury.
I think I have to be as smart as I want to be. I have to understand the risks, ask the right questions. But I'm a competitor. I want to play. I'm gonna do everything in my power to play, and that's just what it is. But I mean, I think the answer to that is dependent on who you ask.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack on this topic, and that's why I wanted everybody in on it, because I want to hear from the athletes on the pressure they will feel. But let me start with our reporter on the scene. Wendy, what can you tell us about Tyrese Haliburton's calf?
Well, Greeny, let's remember, he had an MRI on Tuesday following the injury in Game 5 on Monday night. The Pacers have that information. He is their franchise player. With all of that, they still listed him as questionable, and Coach Rick Carlisle called him a game-time decision for tonight. Let's just be honest. If you call a player a game-time decision in a finals elimination game, you are saying he's going to play. There's no other time you'd ever go into playing, so they have set him up that way. So I don't think that the mystery is whether or not he will play. I think the mystery is how effective can he be, and I'm not sure anybody knows the answer. I do think that's going to be something that the Thunder are going to test very early, and the Pacers are going to have a backup game plan in case it does not go well.
Markieff, you made a fascinating comment to me in our production meeting this morning, and that is that if you were his teammate, you would want to know before the game starts what exactly the situation was going to be. Can you share that thinking?
And the reason why I've said that, Greeny, was because, you know, it's a mental aspect that comes with the game, right, also. So I've been a part of a team that went through the same exact thing in 2021 when I was with the Lakers, and Anthony Davis went down with an injury against the Suns in the first round, right? He started a game, and none of us really didn't know whether or not he could give everything that he had, right? So when we watching him go through the game, we thinking that we at least has a 60 to 80% AD, right? So mentally, we thinking we can win this game. When we go into the game and we see AD get hurt in the first 2-3 minutes, mentally, you know, that takes a shot at the team because already, you know, everything is so high being that it's the playoffs. But now in the finals, if you know these things going into the game as Haliburton's teammate, you can attack the game in a different aspect, right? You can be more aggressive knowing that he's not going to be out here and we have to play a certain way with him not out there. Or you can go into the aspect of not knowing too much about the injury and how much can he actually get and waiting to see how much can he get. And that could that could be a big mental swing for the team.
It's an interesting way to look at it. And so because there are really two decisions here. Wendy just said the decision on whether or not he's healthy enough to give it a go has most likely been made based upon the injury designation they gave you yesterday. But whether he can be effective or not is something that doctors can't decide, right? That's something coaches and others will decide.
And it's a calf.
Yeah,
and
go ahead,
calf
Markieff. Also,
not to cut you off, Greeny. I was with Luka this year in Dallas, and he had a calf strain, and he was almost out 2 months. You know what I mean? And you want a guy that play at the pace that Tyrese Haliburton plays at and the pace that Indiana plays at with a calf injury 2 days later. Like that it seems almost impossible that he's going to be able to give that same type of push with that being the case. I mean, obviously last game he was limping a little bit, but you know, that kind of hindered the team because he wasn't as aggressive. He wasn't able to get to his spots and make the plays that he's been making for the team.
Wendy, what is it you told us this morning about players who had this injury all season long in the NBA?
Yeah, In Street Clothes, which is a website that tracks NBA injuries, had 23 players diagnosed with calf strains in the NBA this regular season. 22 of them missed at least one game. So this is an injury that if it was the regular season, there's no way he would likely play.
Okay, so we know that, but we know this isn't that. So, Harry, I just thought, you know, and the mentality of a football player we know is, because every game feels like it is, for the championship. Tonight quite literally is for the championship. Can you describe the pressure you would imagine he's feeling not to let down his teammates, his organization, his city, his legacy, and everything else, what he must be going through getting set for this game tonight?
Greeny, it's at an all-time high for Tyrese Haliburton. It's an extreme level of pressure for him to be able to get it done and win a Game 6, stave off elimination, and be able to force a Game 7. Now, I would also say this. From a player perspective, it will be a cold day in hell before a player sits there and tell you, hey, I can't go, especially when you're the main attraction for the Indiana Pacers. You're the leader of that organization. The flip side of that, if you're Rick Carlisle, the doctors and the training staff, you also have to look at certain things that have transpired over the last few years within the NBA and also around sports. From a calf injury standpoint, you see guys out here tearing Achilles. So do you really want to compromise the organization and take that chance of what possibly could happen if things go wrong? You can't just look at the pros. You also have to look at the cons, because right now in the Eastern Conference, Indiana is set up perfectly for next season, where a lot of teams are not because of that injury history and that injury bug that's hit a lot of other teams in the Eastern Conference.
OKC's a 6.5-point favorite tonight. Monica, let's talk about the game. You've been talking, you were here with me yesterday, about having 2 game plans, right? So there really is an entirely different look that this team will have if they have Haliburton, or if he is, again, Windy is saying he's most likely going to give this thing a go. But if he's able to really be effective, or if he's not, what do those look like?
While Haliburton is the franchise guy, the success of the Pacers in this postseason and this season at large has been about the collective, the sum of their parts. So to me, the formula tonight, first of all, as a team, they limit turnovers. You can't give up 32 points as OKC defense. Then I think they've got to get back to their three-point shooting ways. Like, they've not shot the three as well in this series as they had through the previous series, but they are back at home. Nembhard, Nesmith, all those guys tend to shoot better at home. And then the last one for me is they've got to continue to get out in the fast break, right? Will it require sort of a monster game, maybe a Pascal Siakam 40-10 or an Aaron Nesmith out-of-body experience in terms of shooting threes again? Possibly. But to me, the turnovers are the biggest piece of this one. And just like we've seen all postseason for these guys, if they get it to clutch time in Indiana, I think they give themselves a chance.
Maybe something crazy happens. I think it is likely that he, if they win, will be the Finals MVP as well. So in a world in which that happens, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but it feels worth asking as a historian of the sport, will this have to go down as one of the greatest individual seasons in NBA history by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander?
Yes, without question. If you look at the fact that he's a 30-point scorer, shooting over 50%, that they had the 68 wins as a team. And I know this is a new award, but it should be counted on the resume. He did win Western Conference Finals MVP, the Oscar Robertson Trophy. And look, when they were in trouble in this series, down 2-1 on the road, he scores 35, 15 in the fourth quarter, one of the great fourth quarter runs of the last 20 years in the finals. Then he comes back in Game 5 to give them the lead and goes for 30 and 10 assists in that game. It's been a command performance. And look, I know people are going to feel a certain way about this, but the reason I'm saying it is just to underscore this. If he wins tonight and gets the MVP, he will have a Hall of Fame resume. End of story at age 26.
Yeah, and again, with much more than half of his career still in front of him. Everyone stay where you are. Very wealthy businessman from Northwestern University, who is now also the owner of the Los Angeles Lakers, a $10 billion valuation. The Buss family, after 46 years, selling the Lakers to Mark Walters Group. The Busses will keep a minority share, and Jeannie Buss will continue as the team's governor, meaning the decision maker for, quote, at least a number of years. Magic Johnson, he weighed in as you knew he would. He had to weigh in on them one-upping the Celtics, McNutt. He tweeted, just like I thought. When the Celtics sold for $6 billion, I knew the Lakers were worth $10 billion. You know that Larry Bird would be mad, except you know Larry Bird is not on Twitter.
Larry Bird can care less.
You just know he didn't see that. But Luka Doncic is, and he posted this. The Lakers are an amazing organization. I'm looking forward to meeting Mark and excited about the future. I'm also grateful to Jeannie and the Buss family for welcoming me to LA, and I'm happy that Jeannie will continue to be involved. I look forward to working with both of them to win championships. Now, this is interesting on a variety of levels. Let's start at the most basic with Markieff Morris. And Windy, I will start with you. Luka Doncic, at least theoretically, is not officially a Laker going forward, right? He's got a decision to make in August. He makes it sound like that decision has already been made here.
Well, he's under contract, but he can opt out of his contract next summer. So the Lakers' priority, since they traded for him last February, has been to make sure he does extend his contract this summer. All signs point to him being happy in LA. he may not take a full 4-year max contract. There's some various reasons we won't get into right now, while 3 years could make sense. But this, I think, only makes the Lakers more attractive. Having a much deeper pocketed ownership group that can bring the Lakers much more into modern times is very attractive. They already were a huge international brand in a city where all NBA players have shown interest in wanting to live. Now they're going to have really dynamic ownership that has made a huge difference for the Dodgers. I would expect Luka to get into that contract. He can't do it until August, but between now and then, the Lakers are going to have to do some work on their roster, so there is going to be some bit of mystery. But I think all signs are pointing green for the Lakers. They just need some more help on their roster to be more competitive in the West.
He's just doing the right things, man. He's checking the boxes. He's letting the Lakers fans know, the organization know that, he's excited about coming back for next year and years to come, right, man? That's one thing that's showing that he's bought into this team and that he's ready to win, right? It's exciting to see your best player, tweet in one of your newest players to tweet about the excitement of what the Lakers will look like going further. And that's really the main thing, man. I think, he's excited for next year. He's excited to prove, people wrong again next year, and he's ready to work.
How close are they, Monica, is the question. And I point out that Markieff is in the conversation and he is currently on the roster. But I mean, this is a team that got knocked out in the first round. It was a tough series against Minnesota. I think we all sort of looked at that as it was a bad matchup. Styles make fights. It was a matchup that didn't favor them. But that's one of the, when you have an Achilles heel, if you have that, how close do they feel to winning the championships Luka is talking about?
A strong center away, I think, because I think what you saw in this run this year was the lack of size, offensively, interior defense, whatever you want to put it, but the size was a problem. Now, what I will say, Greeny, with this move, right, does this organization now become more attractive to free agents? Because you got an owner that's going to go balls to the wall, so to speak, and do whatever they've got to do to bring this team back to a championship. But I don't think they're that far off. I will say the question for me, though, becomes LeBron James postseason at this chapter of his career. I think the last couple of seasons, there's some fatigue that has set in when the clock strikes April, and that is to be expected at his age. But if Luka is moving into the focused version that the Instagram clips would indicate, if that tweet is fully understanding that he's got to be all in terms of becoming the best version of himself, not that he's been poor, but yes, he's probably got another level that he can get to, then I think these guys are going to be in the mix in the Western Conference.
Windy, the Lakers had that move made for a center that last year and then rescinded it on the physical and all the rest of that. What is the expectation around the league of what they will do this offseason?
Well, they're going to have to address that. They don't necessarily have to get an elite center, but if they're going to stay invested in Luka and Austin Reeves, and all signs point to that being true, they just don't have a strong perimeter defensively. And so they have to get somebody that has their backs, and that could make a huge difference for them. And they know that. They've admitted it. Their actions have shown it. The market right now doesn't look super available for centers, but things are going to be changing over the next couple of weeks, and I do expect them at some point to make a significant move. They have some ammunition, both in tradable contracts and draft capital that they used to try to get Mark Williams, that they rescinded that trade back in February, so they've shown an interest in trying to be aggressive.
Okay, so we'll leave that there because I want to get to one other thing today that we haven't yet this morning. We'll see about the Lakers. Let's talk about Kevin Durant. This is a sound off. Where KD is going to play next season has continued to be a hot-button topic, and Chris Mad Dog Russo has no patience for stars who want out of contracts. He says the Suns don't owe Durant anything since he hasn't won them anything. Here was Mad Dog on First Take yesterday.
He's done nothing in Phoenix in the big picture. They haven't won. They didn't even make the playoffs this year. And last year in the first round, he was completely outclassed by the Timberwolves. They got routed in 4 straight games. So now we got to make sure that KD gets what he wants? Nonsense. I wouldn't do that if I was the Sun management. I'm going to make the best deal for my team. And if KD ends up in New Orleans, deal with it.
I'm telling you right now, John Havlicek would never have done that under any circumstance. These guys don't even know who Don Nelson was. They just think he was a coach. Okay, sorry.
You did a great job.
That's listen. And he knows I do it with love. I love Mad Dog like crazy. But is he right, Markieff? You're an active player. KD wants some control on some level over where he goes from here. What do you think?
I mean, done nothing part, yeah, they haven't won, but man, the guy averaged 27, 6 and 4 in played 62 games and
wasn't
shot
because of him.
50% from
Exactly.
the floor, 40 from the three. So I mean, done nothing. That's a little like, that's a little off. But when these trades happen, like I don't know if Mag Dog know. Like if I'm Phoenix, I'm doing the best for the team, right? But it has to come with the team that's accepting Kevin Durant too. Is he gonna be there next year? I don't know if a team wants to put, all these pieces and give all these pieces to Phoenix, not knowing if Kevin Durant is going to re-sign with the team. So you have to have some aspect of him wanting to be at a team. It just can't be all Phoenix.
That's the point, right, Windy? That KD, while he doesn't control where he goes, sort of does in a different kind of way. Can you explain?
Yeah, so at the trade deadline, the Suns were close to sending him to Golden State. He made it clear he didn't want to go there. And that wasn't the Suns that pulled out of that. It was Golden State. Golden State didn't want him if he didn't want to be there. They've seen that before. And in this case, it's not that the Suns are prioritizing what Durant wants. They'd like to, in an ideal world, make him happy. The reason that his desires are relevant is because it affects, as Markieff said, the value that they're getting back. If the value isn't good enough without his approval, then they're not going to make a deal that they don't like. I think that's way more what's driving this delay than it is satisfying what he wants.
What do you think? Give me the spot. KD, this offseason, where he goes, who he teams with, and next year, this week, mid-June, we're talking about Kevin Durant.
I continue to be a fan of Houston, but I will say lately, Greeny, San Antonio's sneaking in there a little bit more for me in terms of a real opportunity to run alongside De'Aaron Fox, Victor Wembanyama, those guys. So I'm just going to go with Texas for now. One of the two teams in Texas, not the Mavs, because there's three, obviously.
The Rangers.
Right, yeah. But I just think, too, KD still is a bucket. Like, he literally is, and we've talked about this all week. And I do think at this point in his career, though, the distance between he and the next best player sort of matters. And Houston, Fred VanVleet's been an all-star. They don't have as many all-stars, but obviously San Antonio has all-star and all-NBA caliber guys that could run alongside him, and they really have an opportunity to do some damage.
Look, we did an essay yesterday here that went viral that demonstrates that KD is still basically every bit as good as he has ever been, with the exception, as Windy pointed out, of being maybe a little bit more prone to injury. But Elgin Baylor, I'm telling you right, he's not Elgin Baylor, okay? Can we all just acknowledge he's not Elgin Baylor, or whoever else Mad Dog might have thrown in.
NBA,